Hello again. And this week, joining me is a photographer whose charisma really does match his lighting skills. He spent many years lighting speedboats and wakeboarders, and it's doing that has given him his name, FlashGarrison. That's right, Chris Garrison. Photographer who, in his own words, you would normally find somewhere between Gate C35 and the rental car line. Spending most of the year travelling in a normal year, Chris has actually effectively more checked baggage than he says an average family of 12. But he always loves to come home at the end of those shoots to see his wife and his beloved golden retriever. Or should I say his beloved wife and his golden retriever. Originally specialising in extreme action sports, especially around the world of speedboats and wakeboarding, Chris has created a unique style for himself. A look that has now become his brand, his name, and ultimately his nickname, FlashGarrison. Taking everything he learnt from the high-speed world of action and adventure sports, he's now moved into the commercial photography game, where he likes to try to push himself further and further on every shoot. Humbled in his own words to have received many awards, both for editorial and commercial work, he's grown a strong and magnetic personality, I think is the best way to describe it, with campfire stories that he says will blow even the most seasoned veteran's mind. So please join me in welcoming Chris Garrison all the way from Orlando, Florida, to your screens. There he is.
Hey Charlie, how are you?
Very, very good, thanks. How are you? Happy morning to you.
Good, yeah, bright and early for me. This is an early morning for me nowadays.
Well, yes, I suppose it is in a way, isn't it? 9 o'clock, you know.
Yeah, that's an early one.
You keeping well? You're looking healthy?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, minus the weather that's been intense here the last few days. It's been good the last few months, you know?
Yeah, I can imagine over there in Florida. But obviously, in comparison to where I am in the UK, you're definitely going to win, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you know, we got the beach over here, we got the pool life, you know, good weather. It's like 105 degrees probably today and rainy, you know, so it's like London weather without the coolness to it, you know?
I think I know. I think I know. Well, the fact that you've got a fan twirling above your head and I haven't, I think says something about the sort of regular type of temperature that you have to deal with. So a bit different. I think
that fan has turned off since I bought this house 3 years ago.
Wow. Maybe you should start shooting them. A solid piece of equipment to keep you cool. I like all your wakeboard stuff behind you. It's good. Your little pictures and so on.
Yeah,
your brochures.
That's a little of the history right there. You know, all the covers and all the good stuff from back in the day. You know. So
from
some kind of decoration in the home office here. So
I think you should.
It's all computers and hard drives and a lot of stuff. You know, a couple of other things, but you know, it's a lot. All the gear to my right. You know, that's about it.
Yeah, of course. That's at least that's what you're telling me. Some of the photographers I've interviewed, they've shown this wonderful world behind them, and then if you actually shimmy the camera that way or this way, it's like a cellar or a broom cupboard or something, you know, completely not like that. But I think yours definitely wins. I think you do need to have a wakeboard behind you though at some point.
It's well, I have a golf bag to my right here. I mean, it's an IKEA showroom in here, storage basically to keep everything nice and play. You know, get the nice little f-stop gear like ICUs. They slide perfectly and everything, you know. So
yeah, that's true.
Go in the office, it looks like a nice, clean, horrible office. So. Good. The amount of time that you spend in these things nowadays, you know, with networking and talking and emailing, you gotta have it nice and clean at least. I do have a golf club bag right there, so that's always a good thing.
That's very true. Do you swing them off in the house? You know, like take.
No, I do swing in the backyard. You know, COVID-19 nowadays. You know, you work on your short game, your putting game. That's all you got. So you just got to chip and putt over the pool nowadays.
Killer. So look, let's kick off with understanding all about Flash, but not necessarily explaining how Flash works, but about the man that you are, the style that you created over the last sort of decade of your career. You shared a number of images with me. We're going to run through stuff that shows your very kind of unique Flash style. And then we're going to move on to some more of your kind of commercial, modern day sort of recent work, shall we call it? So the first shot that you shared with me is this one in front of Mount Fuji. Lots of supremely cool spray bouncing around with the sun blasting. What was it that sort of brought you into the world of wakeboarding and well, lots of heavy flashlights on the back of the boat?
Oh, it's always a tough one, you know, how I created the whole Flash thing and making my life as hard as it can possibly be, or any assistant as hard as it can possibly be on all the jobs. So I guess very, very long story short is, you know, I was working in the snow industry side, ended up moving back to Florida, and then obviously, you know, Florida's king for wakeboarding. So I just always wanted to have that studio look, I guess what you want to call it, you know, that near impossible look to get on water moving at, you know, 20 plus miles an hour on multiple platforms, basically, just platforms being boats, jet skis, tubes, anything you can find that floats sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I just, for some reason, I just had that interest to always keep it very lit looking. I mean, no matter what I was using the Flash, and this is going back to, you know, over 10 years ago. So I was kind of not fully creating that style, but I guess coining or terming the style of, you know, just keeping that Flash look for action sports. And very heavy on the Flash too, especially.
Absolutely,
not just like, oh, let's put an on-camera Flash, or like one with me. It's like, how do we get one over here on this boat and one over here to create rim light? And how do we shoot directly at the sun and then light it too? And then do all this like with high action sports. So it was a fun learning experience, we'll say.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, looking through some of your other portfolio, there's I saw a picture of one of the speedboats that you shoot. I can't remember the brand name actually. Sat in this big bay, which was lit. Obviously, the boat was lit clearly from the shore, somewhere underneath all the rocks. Type of photography that you don't really see. You're right. It's more studio based, and you're taking it out into the open. Now, obviously, a lot of photographers over the last 10 years have taken Flash outside, but something is definitely more sort of signature in the way that you do it. And I think, as you say, it's really kind of filling the scene with a lot more light and having the charisma and the punch to talk about it in that way. And this shot here is you said one of the first ones that you shot in that style. What took you to this location in this particular image?
Well, Mount Fuji, I mean, I guess it's the cliche story. Everyone always wants to go to Japan. I mean, it's a snowboard story. I mean, it's like almost every industry sport story, like breakdancing, acting, everything. Everyone wants to go to Japan. The talent that is in the photo is Shota Tezuka, who is a Japanese-based athlete. And he is from a lake called Lake Yamanaka, which is one of the closest lakes at the base of Mount Fuji.
Okay.
So if you can imagine going to like as urban Japan as you can get, like you pass the Death Forest on the way to this lake, basically. Everyone that knows Japan usually knows the Death Forest, or like at least the movie that was based around it. So you're headed there, and then you're just, I mean, if you don't have anyone Japanese with you, you are not getting around. There's no English, no one speaks English. Doesn't have It's not like you're in Tokyo anymore. I mean, you're just out in the woods. It's like
in the middle of nowhere,
going like outside the Smoky Mountains with no tourism, basically. You know, it's kind of how it's like. So, I mean, what it would be in the UK would, you know, you just take your road trip going up north towards, you know, as north as you can go, you know, and just hit the brakes. And that's about where you're at, just by yourself, a couple of cabins, and that's where we were. That's his hometown, which is, luckily enough, one of the most beautiful lakes right around Mount Fuji, with like always a perfect reflection of Mount Fuji on it. Obviously, it's a volcanic lake, so it's black ash everywhere, black beach, so it's really cool. And then you got the base of Mount Fuji, which is one of the most iconic mountains in the world. So just one of those bucket list spots to go to, and then which also provides its own challenge and environment to do what I would usually do in the U.S. with boats and miting and chasing and just even having a wakeboard boat out there as an example. It's not exactly easy to get them in these locations. It's not
So
like
is this
snowboarding.
was this one of your first projects then?
One of the ones first out of the country, I guess, was showed. I had already created the style a long time ago. Obviously, snowboarding is kind of where it was born. Snowboarding was kind of the birth of like everything being well lit. Going back to those days, like went from the natural lights, everything had this nice contrasty lit look, and that's where I picked the style up. But I brought it to water sports basically, and this is, I guess, kind of the typical shot of me with water sports. Having everything backlit and then fill lit from the boat, and then sometimes, like for example, this one having the flash in the other boat in it, mainly for this reason, to cover the boat that we were riding behind, because of sponsorship reasons. So
interesting. It's definitely a punchy shot.
It was really cold. I was walking on tree stumps for a good hour afterwards because that water was that cold. I mean, you may or may not be able to tell, but Mount Fuji's still covered in snow.
Yeah, so I was just picking up on that. Yeah, definitely just picking up on it. Yeah, nice. Well, ballsy. I mean, normally, I have to say, Mount Fuji shots, you normally see a lot of snow. I have seen some wakeboard stuff in front of it, but I've heard of this lake. But great, cool. Very strong shot, and sort of shows the signature style of you very well. The next shot though that you shared with me is where you start to sort of chuck a bit of colour in. And actually, before I show it, interestingly, I found something at home that is one of yours that I've got here.
Yes, yeah. You picked that up at what was that, Photokina? No, that was New York, right?
I think it was. I
was just talking about this location.
I think actually it was a Photokina printed on a Canon printer, which f-stop was running at the time.
Yeah,
they were doing some promo. That's correct.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's just, it's quite a nice shot to show because it's very similar to the second shot that I wanted to talk about with you. Again, this one, the previous shot wasn't, but the one I just showed and this one now on screen are both Red Bull images. And I remember this actually. I remember seeing this previously and commenting on how it felt sort of quite peacockish. I think with the kind of colours. This is stratospherically different. This is a big setup. You're overhead. You're really kind of maximising your lighting skills, shall we say, in the same way. As this one here. So what sort of led you through to that kind of vibe where you've gone from doing big light setups, big flash setups on the backs of boats, secondary boats, etc., to something here where you're starting to incorporate a bit of colour and do things differently. How did you set this particular shot up?
This was actually a Red Bull shot. This is for anyone that's listening, it's Charlie and I's history is actually from the Red Bull side, on the photography side. So this was actually created for mainly the Red Bull photography side for the kind of colorful lit shot. Very, very long story and professional answer short. I was called the middle of the day to come shoot this for a Red Bull project. It was a collegiate event in Orlando. Basically, it was just a normal water sports complex. So very plain and boring. It's just out in the middle of nowhere, all white features. It's been shot a million times. It's like the most popular water sports complex to come to for wakeboarding. Imagine a snowboard park. Mm-hmm. And imagine a snowboard park, and then basically just shooting at the same park with the same features that everyone's been to a million times. So they wanted to get something creative and unique because this is Megan Ethel in the photo, but it was Megan Ethel and Steele Lafferty were coming out, which were the Red Bull sponsored athletes. And I was just like, man, we can't really create anything cool here at the wakeboard park without putting a lot of work into it, So what it was, the way they were doing it, they were lighting it up at night, and they had consistent lights on one side of the lake that were going to light up the athletes in their collegiate colors, you know. So if it's FSU, it would have been like red and gold. If it's UCF, it was, well, UCF's black and gold, that won't make sense. So white and gold. But they would just light up the features in different colors. And I was like, man, we can. Yeah, there's no smoke machines. They didn't have any hazer machines. This is actually just straight Orlando moisture and humidity that you see from the light rays in this. So I was like, there's got to be a way to do something unique with these lights. And imagine these features are, 100 feet long. These lights are, 300-400 feet away across the lake. So it's basically in a picture, like say, here's the picture frame. The lights are like this big in the corner. So you can't really make them anything special. It's not wrapping around a feature, and we can't really move anything.
Yeah.
So luckily enough for us, we had a high lift company right next door that rents out the high reaches and dump trucks as an example. So we were able to snag one of their last high reaches. That was a 100-foot high reach to get me to go up high enough and boom out far enough to look down.
Amazing.
So very long story on the, I guess the techie side is this is lit with 3 strobes basically. Kind of looking at the image, you got one left, one right. Technically it was 4 strobes actually. So one left, one right, one directly would be below me, and then one all the way across the lake for the backlight too. Mainly to freeze what would be the action that you see in it with Megan up on the rail there. And then I was just doing a manual exposure on the lift where I would start the shutter, obviously not knowing what I was doing going into it, so I didn't have a little plunger or a velometer or anything. So I would start the shutter by hand as she would approach, so it would start burning the hot lights, which would be the colorful lights that you see, and then that gave her the motion and the tracking that you see, the splashes of water, and then like her little motion blur. So she would go up, do her thing, come down, but then basically I would pick the peak moment and I would fire the strobes separately with the pocket wizard by my hand. That was able to create, I did not expect to get that much light out of it from the hot lights that were there, which is all the color. But yeah, it worked out pretty well. I was pretty surprised, honestly, with what we made happen on that one. And there's a good little sequence of different photos with them carving around the water with the motion and the color burn and everything. So it's a fun experience of showing up on the set and not really knowing what you're doing, and then making something special happen out of what is very basic.
Of course.
At a snowboard park, and all you got is one little rail, and then that's it. And you're like, okay, cool. What do we do with this? We don't have time to do anything super creative.
Do you make a habit then of traveling with a set of gels?
Yeah, I actually always do travel with gels. One, I have the color gels. And then 2, it's mostly for the white balance of the CTO level gels. It's just, well, nowadays especially, just matching the light to, sunset colors. So if everything's orange, you're shooting with an orange light and not a white light. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine nowadays when the white balance doesn't really match. You're shooting backlit into the sun and it's like orange sunset, and also it's all this white light or bluish light, and you're like, doesn't really match. Certain circumstances of creativity, yes, it looks great. But you're doing like a normal lifestyle shot, you want those colors to match, basically. So I always actually have the gels with me when I do travel. And I did the photo that you did post up, I just sent to you. So you should have that.
This one.
Little folder. Yeah, so you do have that if you can pop it up on the screen, or you just want to just hold it up for a second. So the difference between those 2 photos is one you're just holding up. So that one is, I think it's 9. No, I think it was 12 strobes. So that is actually fully lit with gels and flash. That whole thing, there's no hot lights. That is all flash gels, basically. So you can imagine the fun around that one, walking up and around that lock the whole time, getting flashes on the left side, the right side, the back side, the front side. So, and then the photo that was up on the screen with Megan on the rail with the motion blur, that's all hot lights with a little bit of flash mixed in, just to kind of make the difference, basically.
That's good. Interesting to hear the. Interesting to hear the difference.
That's up in Lockport, New York. One of the only times legally you can ever swim up in the Erie Canal. And anyone that knows the Erie Canal knows you don't want to touch that water.
Yeah, much like the canals here in Britain, I think.
Yeah, not clean.
So you not only mastered doing it with single shots, but also with creating sequences. So the flash sequence that you've shared with me here. So you're having
I'm straightening
your camera's straightening up. Yeah, good on you.
There we go.
It looks like I might have a bit of a lag on my audio. So if anyone's listening and it looks laggy, then please do say. Been having a few technical glitches myself over the last few weeks, and Chris has actually just frozen.
Yeah, because I've tried to hit decline. My phone keeps going. There we go.
There we go.
And I'm back. Sorry,
all right.
I'm stuck on my phone right now because I could not get my computer to connect to Skype for some reason. So
that's all right. Technical issues on both sides. So the first flash sequence up on screen now. This is a particularly impressive shot because obviously what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 images, each of them with a light. Judging by this, it looks like it's not consistent, as in the previous shot.
Nope.
And obviously, making sequences are not exactly the easiest thing to create. Where was this? Who was this guy? And what was the?
So this was actually in the middle of a Malibu shoot. So Malibu Boats is one of the commercial clients, obviously wakeboard boat brands. You know, one of the highest end boat brand basically. So we were just kind of creating some more unique imagery just for the action side of like their image usage for advertising. So usually it's like boats, running shots, lifestyle, and all that fun stuff. This was at least just to get some action for them. So we wanted to do just with what we have on the water that have 10 boats in the water that we're shooting. We have kind of an unlimited amount of boats and platforms and people to actually control the boats. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do the flash sequence, and keep in mind this is obviously an older photo because it's one of the first strobe sequences. Back then the battery packs couldn't do flash sequences, or you had to have multiple packs and go between different channels. It was kind of a pain in the butt and didn't always work. So we had to use basically AC powered flash sequences, which would be the ones that you normally plug into the wall of the building, to get them to recycle fast enough to strobe to be able to get each sequence of the shot. So basically, if you imagine me sitting on a boat right now taking this photo, the athlete on the boat is in their boat to the right, which is the one that's pulling the athlete. So that's your typical 25-foot wakeboard boat. It's got a 2,000 watt generator with 2 strobes on it, which are the 1,000 watt Ellen Chrome heads. And there's a boat directly behind him inside of the wake, which has another 2,000 watt generator and 2 of the 1,000 watt Ellen Chromes on it. Because you had to keep them so low powered, you had to shoot with 2 of them. To recycle fast enough, you had to shoot with 2 of them to basically double up the light to throw it far enough to actually hit the athlete. So in what Trevor was doing too, trick wise, which is one in which he would basically spin a 180, stop, and then do a rewind, was actually very tough too back then. So it was a combination of a lot of technical sides to come together and a lot of athlete technical sides to come together to make it happen. And in the post production, it's its own other animal with splashing water and moving backgrounds to make happen, and then pick if I'd want more ropes or less ropes in the shot. Obviously you can see where the ropes from the left side of the screen end into the athlete and don't continue to the right side of the screen. So originally the ropes would obviously keep coming through on the right side, but it was really distracting to have a bunch of ropes there. Kind of my pet peeve with wakeboarding, having ropes everywhere with sequences.
Of course, yeah. It's a pretty awesome shot, really. I mean, trying to compose sequences is never easy. The overlap, making sure you got the right one, but this was clearly a serious labour of a photograph to hear that you got all those lights. And what year was this? Was it you shot this, Chris?
Ooh, I can find it out real quick for you. I mean, I would say this was 2015. It might have been 2016. Or no, yeah, it might have been 2015 actually. I'll pull it up my website and it'll tell me right away. But it should have been 2015, 2016 era. So it was before Ellen Chrome had come out with the newer flashbacks. So those were on Ellen Chrome Rangers, which were the big, sealed lead acid batteries, basically, of flashbacks that, weigh 30 pounds each when you're going out there. 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, technology's moved on a long
Yeah,
way.
now this package strobe sequence for you on battery power.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge when things weren't quite as good. Obviously, I mean, I've had conversations with other photographers who've also done this for a while, and they've, like you, found ways around it. The irony is that now it's easier to create an image like that just because of the actual
so
physical hardware that you need to have. But it's such a great image to see, sort of quite, reasonably old school in current terms. So those three images, or four, including the one I showed up, really sort of, yeah, the handheld, really describe your sort of style, where the FlashGarrison nickname came from, and what you've kind of coined. But before we move on to your sort of commercial work, your newer commercial work, shall we say, there's a pretty wonderful image I'd like to show, where you worked with your own budget for a shoot in Japan.
Yes, yep, the old Japan shot, and back to Japan again.
Back to Japan, exactly. So here it is on screen. This is a beautiful image. I mean, you've got the sunset, the beautiful lighting, the Japanese sculpture, gate, perfect timing, obviously, and a really punchy boat low down in the water. Why did it take you 5 years to be able to put this together?
Besides budget reasons,
of course,
it's a very, very hard spot to get over to. So basically, it's one of the torii gates that's on Lake Biwa in Japan. So Lake Biwa is one of the largest, I guess, bodies of water in Japan. It's landlocked. So it's about, I think it was an hour and a half bullet train ride out of Tokyo, going towards Kyoto. So you are on the lake. You're probably about a 30-minute drive out of Kyoto, Japan, to give people the idea of where it's at. So once again, another one of those suburban areas of Japan that there is not much on. At least on the north side of the lake, there's not much. On the south side, it's like full-out casinos, like Lake Tahoe style.
Okay.
But this section is very classic Japan. Obviously, Kyoto is known as very classic Japan. So basically, the image for me, to give people the final story before I get to the backstory, is this was the last ran printed image for Wakeboard Magazine. And I mean, I guess technically for me, it was one of my last real wakeboard shoots. I mean, I would still shoot wakeboarding occasionally now, but this is one of my last ones where I was kind of like, this is going to be the shot that I want to end on. If I stop shooting wakeboarding, I would be perfectly happy. So this was it for me right here. So backstory on it was, obviously ended up being the cover of the magazine. I think it's actually behind me, right in this area right here.
I can't. We have to. You'd have to spin slightly.
So basically, they did. It was the last print for them, so it's like the full pull-out cover, basically.
Pull to your. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay. You can see my phone taped to the computer screen. It's hilarious, so I'm covered right now. But that way, it gives everyone the idea of the layout, basically. So it was a very tough one to get to because it's on a very remote section of the lake. There's no boat ramps over there, no boat docks. And then also being in that area of Japan, it's extremely hard to get a wakeboard boat over there. Luckily enough, there was just happened to be a dealer there that had that Supra at the time. So basically, we were able to get a green light that we could, from the government, that we were able to wakeboard around this shrine that's been there for hundreds of years, basically. Obviously rebuilt a few times, but it's one of the oldest temples in Japan too, as well. So when we got the green light to be able to go do it, Shota and I just had to pull the trigger, and obviously, there was no real budget to do it. We didn't really have time to reach out to anyone to make a budget to do it, so we just, we've been talking about doing it for 5 years. I pitched it to several brands, no one wanted to do it, so Shota and I just decided to do it on our own. So we just put it together, and sent it out there and got a nice little 2-week trip in Japan to go make this one photo happen. Basically, it's what we were doing. Obviously, we shot other things and did a few other things while we were there. But the whole joke I have is 2 weeks in Japan for a single photo, a single moment in time. Literally, we had less than 30 minutes while we were there to get it done too. So obviously you can tell by the cloud cover that, it was not the nicest day out when we got out there. We came out for sunrise. The previous night we had done sunset for it, because usually right where Shota is, the sun would usually set right there. So depending on the time of the year, the sun will be right in the middle of the Torii Gate.
Okay.
The night before it was, raining as always as it is that time of year in Japan. Got out there that morning, it was super flat and cloudy out. Sunrise was basically skunked over. There was probably 10 of the wildest fishing boats I've ever seen in my life around this thing. Basically monster 50-foot boats that have nets on the front of it that just nosedive into the water and scoop fish up and then keep going with it. And apparently they're just fishing around the Torii that day. So we get out there and we're like, this whole trip is over now. Like, we literally are coming down the last day and we have no chance to even shoot because of the fishing boats. And it was, we're sitting there, and within like a 10-minute period, the clouds started to break a little bit for the sun to come through, and the fishing boats literally all left at the same time. So if you imagine like a 10-minute period, Shota's getting ready in the back of the boat. I'm swimming to shore with my camera, basically, because I'm actually in this photo, I'm about waist deep in the water, kind of squatting down from the shoreline, shooting it. Usually I would float in the water, but, we had no time to do anything, so I just jumped in the water and swam to shore with the camera over the... Actually, the camera was in a cooler with an extra lens because we didn't know what lens we would need. So we had to throw everything in a basic cooler and then float it while I swam to shore to get it. And it's actually lit too, because I had to have, that's another thing that was in the cooler, was there's a strobe in the cooler, there's a strobe on the boat, and to get a nice clean look that it had, because obviously it was kind of decently side and backlit from the sun at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got, I think it's like 12 passes at it for the sun and everything went away, and this is about halfway through. Just getting that timing in where he's directly dead center on that Torii Gate too is a whole nother level of achievement on top of it, because he's watching me from shore with my arm up and then trying to drop them in, so I have to kind of pay attention to his time that he needs to cut in, hit the wake, and then actually get into the position, we'll say.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, it basically, if he's 1 foot off in this photo, he would almost be to the left of the gate, or to the left side of the gate. If he's like 1 foot too late, he would be like behind the post of the Torii Gate or something. 2 feet off, he's not even inside the gate at all, basically. So imagine the athlete having to find like this much of an area to hit while riding, and then watching me and everything just kind of lining up, and then the strobes going off at the same time with that distance. So
yeah, that's definitely tricky, and you managed it 1 in the 12.
Yeah, it was. There's a couple more. He wasn't dead center. There was more of, it was just style that we're going for. Originally, he was trying to do a Japan, so it'd be like a Japan in Japan, as always, like an athlete does. It just wasn't the best angle for it, we'll say. So we had to make communication happen at that distance to have him switch the trick up too.
Incredible.
Screaming, switch your trick up. He's probably thinking I'm saying turn around and do it again. So the usual charades.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, trying to get those done in that short period of time is, you've got that window of sunrise. You've got a few passes. I think inevitably you get it. You went there. You're going to get it, but it takes the first few to kind of find your feel. Find your rhythm, figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and just even driving there, I mean, we're going through like 4-foot waves crossing the lake too. It was an experience for sure.
That's fantastic. Well, it's great. It's great that the end result, worked out, and you had it on the cover, and it was almost a kind of a wonderful way to close, not entirely, but close a sort of chapter of your.
Yeah, well, I mean, just obviously the everything that you hear, the death of print that everyone keeps saying, to be able to have like that last little one, the hold, having to be the pull-out cover.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
See one of the other ones of the other shots that we did, if it's even viewable in it, basically, from the other angle. there's a whole temple, and basically I'm standing in front of a temple on that one. I'm at the steps of a
Love
temple.
it. Love it. There's a message there, definitely. Definitely.
It is the good fortune. It was it the Whitebeard, so I'm pretty sure it's good fortune, longevity, and good business is what it was. The temple, the Whitebeard temple. I forgot the actual Japanese name for it. So basically everyone, the whole point in Japan is every torii gate means something different, whether it's good fortune, the ability to have kids, good business, and when you cross on through the torii gate, it gives you that good fortune is what it means. So that was the whole point.
So you made sure you swam through it whilst taking your camera.
I swam through it. We drove the boat through it. Should have wakeboarded through it. I think we did everything we could through it. So I sat on the stairs of the temple and went to the other gate.
Love it. Yeah, well, it worked out.
Underneath it, anything you could think of, we did it.
Nice. It definitely worked out. So, moving on then from wakeboarding and into some more of your slightly more rock and roll, should we say, commercial work. That wakeboarding is rock and roll, but the next thing I'm putting up is even more so. Definitely.
So it's the boring commercial work, right?
No, well, it depends which way you look at it, really. I think putting this picture on screen will definitely prove that it's not that boring. So, Chris got involved in One More Orbit, a project with Starfighter, and he got to shoot a jet plane, a jet fighter.
One of the fastest.
One of the fastest jet fighters in the world. So here we go. Look at this. This Starfighter plane is. Well, this is we don't get to shoot things like this on an average day, do we? Not everybody, and especially not looking like this. What I think is fascinating about this shot is Chris will reveal slightly, but this obviously looks like it's in this amazing kind of hangar, and it's going to do a vertical lift off straight out. But the reality, Chris, is somewhat different, isn't it? This shot.
Very much different. So the backstory on that one of the astronauts I do some work with, Terry Virts, he was the pilot of one of the space shuttles, kind of flew a space shuttle to space and landed it back on Earth, commanded the space station. I think he has the record for the most number of photos taken from space of Earth, basically. So, I think probably behind the Hubble telescope, but human being, he has the record. So he was doing a kind of commemorative thing for the 50th anniversary of Apollo for his friends Buzz Aldrin and basically all the guys that he has known through his space travel career. They were breaking the world record for flying around the Earth, the fastest, which was like 42 hours and change. They basically did a full circumference from pole to pole. So took off at the NASA's Kennedy Space Center from the space shuttle runway, took off, went 42 hours straight around the world and landed, they broke the record by, I think it was 10 hours or something crazy in a Gulfstream 650. It was basically the Emirates private Gulfstream 650. So this jet came about because the Gulfstream is going to be flying at just south of Mach 1, which Mach 1, is the sound barrier. So they're going just south of it because commercial flights cannot break Mach 1. Even over water, they're not allowed to break Mach 1 because usually you have to keep the sound barrier for out in the water, not over land. So this jet is one of the last surviving jets from, if you know the right stuff or anything about space travel, it was the NASA's trainer jets. So it can mimic space shuttle launches. It goes over Mach 2, twice the sound, twice the speed of sound. So this jet is actually able to intercept the 650 going the speed of sound over the water to get the air-to-air shots that it needed. So that's how I ended up meeting the guys that own these jets and use these for basically military use for trainers and obviously going up to altitude and just kind of testing certain objects that need to be covered for space travel or military use. So I wanted to create some commercial work for them to help promote and do other projects with them. So I had to shoot a couple, beauty shots of the plane's parts. Because, we've had the air-to-air shots done. We did lots of air-to-air stuff, lots of runway stuff, lots of flyby stuff, all the usual stuff that you see from fighter jets. And I was like, we need to get a couple beauty shots that are good for the covers and good for, your promotional material. So I basically took what is now my light painting technique that I use for a lot of automotive and a lot of marine studio work, and put it over a multi-million-dollar jet, $100+ million jet, inside of basically what is a warehouse. So if anyone listening wants to Google the space shuttle landing facility at Kennedy Space Center, it has the hangar that would house the space shuttles after they would land. So the space shuttles would come down, hit the runway, and then they would house them in the hangars. It was inside the space shuttle hangar. So if you can just take the plane, look at the plane as it is, the fighter jet you're looking at, and just take away the background, the foreground, just imagine looking at the fighter jet only, and then put it inside of a hangar with like other jets behind it, helicopters, lots of weird NASA stuff, random things that have come down from space while we're there shooting, no joke. And then that would have been the background. So I had to work around lots of stuff, and classified or not, basically shoot it and get what I needed from the jet, and then cut it out and then create what you see now, which is a completely separate background that it was not in.
Outrageous.
And even the ground is different. So that looks like it's an Area 51.
Yes.
Like Area 51 of like NASA at the moment. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost, it could be Thunderbirds as well. That's sort of a reference I got in my head.
Yeah, and that jet is no joke. I mean, that is like the right stuff fighter jet. I mean, the thing is fast. Smallest, it's basically the engine is the entire jet. If you look at the back seat, the engine is still underneath you at that point. It's just basically a rocket that you're strapped to on that thing with little 7-foot wings.
Amazing. I love it.
It's fast.
It's incredible, isn't it? How you can kind of go from shooting people on wakeboards to shooting, $1 billion fighter jets.
Yeah, and facilities that are really hard to get access to.
Yeah, exactly. And but it shows that obviously you can transpose your sort of your lighting skills and your knowledge quite well. This is an astounding image, really, when you think about what you've just described. The situation, the place that it was in, and obviously what you've done. Have you done much work for starfighters outside of this particular one? I mean, you mentioned you did a load of work, air-to-air and so on, but outside of this project?
The sad part about this is I was using it to pitch a bunch of stuff for, what is Top Gun that was coming out, to do some commercial projects with like Pepsi as an example and a bunch of other brands. Because Top Gun's going to be, was going to be the hottest thing this October, because everyone's going to be like, Goose and Maverick all over again. Because how everyone trends for Halloween to, be what were the box movie hits here. This was just for the COVID hit, and we're pitching them for a couple other things and a few other connections to do some more air-to-air stuff, because they can actually, as an example, this fighter jet can intercept, anything coming from space. So as, say Virgin Galactic's coming down from space, this is actually has the ability to intercept it at over Mach 2 in the air. So if you can imagine not just the resources it has for like creating beautiful photos or like being a, prop plane or an air-to-air plane for, any kind of experience for like Top Gun as an example, this also has the ability to chase stuff and do, scientific filming of, basically imagine the rocket releasing and going, and it can actually chase the rocket until it goes back out in space. So there's a lot of like, things we're working on with it, the pitch out there that are obviously all on hold right now. So it's back to normal.
Yeah, I can completely understand. Very interesting to see. Let's see where it goes. Maybe we'll see a bit more of Maverick appearing.
We will say they do have a completely flat black one. Yeah, that people will see soon.
Incredible. So look, moving from one different, I'd like to move to a slightly different lighting style now. We've talked about obviously Flash. We've talked about your working there with the plane in the hangar. But more recently, you've turned into working with a lot of video crews, and in particular, working at the same time for TV commercial sort of spots. And you touched on golf clubs in the corner of your office right there. So the image I'm putting up now is of Ricky Fowler with his beautiful Ford Mustang. Slightly different take here, though. This is not the usual way that you work, right? But it's now become a usual way. So we've seen a sort of change. Yeah, but seen another change in Chris's, or should we say, in Flash's style. What's the story behind this one? You're working with a TV crew shooting at the same time as them. What was the purpose of the shoot?
So most photographers, obviously, when you're doing productions or commercial shoots, it's always just either photo or just either video, or maybe like one's in front of the other. When you're doing projects with kind of higher level talent, this one being Ricky Fowler as an example, which is one of the top names in professional golf, you working with brands that get this talent for like maybe 2 or 3 times a year for a certain amount of hours. So he's got, we'll say 14 different looks he needs. That's over 2 different golf periods. So he's like got to shoot his Masters look or his US Open look and all the different looks he has, where these brands have to shoot this for photo and video, and we only have them for 6 hours as an example.
Yeah.
So in 6 hours you're shooting like a tremendous amount of looks. So there is no room to shoot just photo or just video. I mean, there's a few little things you can pull away and do, obviously interviews with the vignettes, or that's mostly what you have time for, and it's going to be the video side for the interviews, or like those little pieces. When you're shooting the still imagery, it's very much, it has to be done with video for the lifestyle and the action. Yeah. So it's a totally different style of lighting. Obviously you can't strobe anything. The lighting's tamed down a lot as well, because video is more of like a silvery fill look than photography, which is very much a harsh rimlet look. Unless you're thinking Sin City, like all those old school movies, which is different, but that style's kind of dead nowadays.
It will come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. I mean, everything always is full circle. So everything's very natural, very clean now. So for this photo of Ricky as an example, it just kind of looks like it's naturally lit with maybe a little bit of a hot spot on the shoes, because it was an advertising spot for his shoes, basically, which was, I think, 50 years of that, the Puma suede shoe. So they made a 50-year shoe from Puma, like the classic Puma suedes, and they made a golf shoe version of it. So basically this is, it's a 20 by 20 silver lame for fill light. There's like 4 shiny boards on that thing, and then a couple little like M18s for fill light while we're shooting backlit in California. So it's not your usual like, oh, it's 1 strobe or 2 or something, or like maybe a little reflector and a white card. It's a serious amount of light that you're putting out there. And when you're standing there, you're basically cooking, so you're reflecting the sunlight on it. So basically everything here is all just balanced natural light coming into one little, I think it was actually one M18 that we had, kind of going towards the shoes, obviously, on that one. So
that's phenomenal.
It's a different style of lighting.
It is, but I guess at least the difference there is, you don't have to go set everything up in the same way that you do with Flash.
Oh yeah, you got a crew of 14 people
it's there.
setting that stuff up.
You've got you've got people doing it all, and you're trying to create the same look as the video guys. So you're there, you're working it, which makes life actually a lot easier, really, from the purpose of not having to set up multiple looks, as you say. And it's interesting seeing the difference. It's kind of a much softer, obviously consistent light.
You just hold the button down and just keep taking photos, and it's fine. You're good. You just keep looking and just pick the photo afterwards. Totally
Nothing
different.
changes.
Just one click and done. Not a single frame that time.
Yeah, it's always a classic kind of working photographer with video photographer sort of. So that seems to be a very solid way of actually getting around those kind of issues. So it's nice. Obviously it's a new look. Are you happy with the new look that you're kind of working with here?
Yeah, it's great. It's obviously it's a transition. You can't have, a lot of photographers do have single looks. For me, I like to have all kinds of different styles. Obviously the Flash style is a very heavy one for a while.
Yeah.
Everything's a little more natural now, and it was a tough one with clients for a long time. So I had that everything was this polished studio look and all this polished look, and they'd want this natural look, and I had to basically send them evidence that I could shoot what is a very tamed down version of what I would usually shoot, as an example. So yeah, I love the video-ish look too. This one's shot on the phase 1, 2, so you get more of a very natural look, and a lot of the shadows look a lot better than they would on the usual like DSLR cameras.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, it's been a good transition. Just more gear I get to own and have, So
absolutely, you're going to need a bigger office soon.
Yeah, and most of the productions too aren't easy. It's a lot of the brands, because I have to basically do it on a production level. So I'm, producing all the people, basically producing everything, and then I have to shoot it too. So it's hiring the video crew, hiring the lighting crew, with ones that you work with that know how to do the photo video combo successfully, and not like, oh, it'll kind of work like it usually is. So it's I'm on set there managing, up to 40, 50 people at least, just for these smaller shoots like that. And obviously you get to a bigger one, you have more people. Yeah. So it's a different experience, a different set of shoes and pants to wear,
Well, on that note, actually, interesting, because I'm aware time runs away with this, and there's a couple of things I wanted to bring up, and I think it's a good sort of segue in a way into what you've been doing recently, talking about the sort of size of the crew and working with video crews. With COVID having sort of taken us all down a level, there's lots of different ways that our work has been affected, and obviously we've touched on it yourself, like the amount of shoots that you do and the way that you do them has changed, which has brought you to doing your most recent gig of for World Wrestling Entertainment. And I think it's interesting here. You said
everyone's gonna know now.
No. Well, I think there's I think I'm just going to put one shot up, which I think is really interesting, because I wanted to ask you kind of how you think things have changed really for you with COVID, and I think this shot highlights in a way how things have changed for you, but how things have changed for us all, which I'm putting it up now is the SummerSlam shot. And when you first showed this to me, I was astounded really, because I'm impressed and amazed at what they've done to create an audience. So you talk about the size of a crew and on your shoot. This is a crew. Look around. You see in the image, you see all the people on the desks at the front, and I would imagine I could be wrong here, but is everyone wearing masks?
Yeah, actually, that's the unfortunate thing, is we wear a mask for like 12 hours a day inside.
That's harsh, yeah. But you see,
anyone that's on TV talent, which would be the wrestlers, so the referee and whoever's actually wrestling, ringside camera guys, everyone, we're all face masked up.
Interesting.
That's the change. Foggy glasses and all, we're there.
Of course, yeah. But it's also the other change I think is evident is the way that we as viewers can watch a sport, and you would normally expect all those seats, if you will, to be filled by real people, but in actual fact they've gone.
Arena would be this would have 60,000 people in it.
But right instead, they've gone and put. I'm not counted it, but the amount of screens they put up with single people watching from the other end of their computers.
That whole set has to have some of the most LED screens I've seen in my life. For me, it's the most I've seen in my life in a single set. That is that's a full arena. Just if you just look at the little where the ring is, basically that's the basketball court in an arena. If that gives you an idea. So this is where the Orlando Magic would usually play.
Amazing.
At Amway Center.
Yeah.
So that a hockey arena would be from basically the bottom of the stage to the first screens you see. It's very large build outs on that one. I was amazed to see it and watch it be built for 8 days. So
yeah, I can imagine.
I was there for full build on that one.
Yeah, I think it shows a very different side to the type of photography you've got into, and it shows a very different side to the world as we now know it. Do you think, it's a question to you now that you work with this on a daily basis, do you hear of any do you hear of any anyone intimating that there may well be real audiences coming back at any point?
No, I know it's a decent while out, because in America everything's a little different. One of the competitive brands in wrestling, which is a recent competitive brand for them, does have a little bit of audience coming out. I think I saw some, soccer or football for you guys that had audience spaced out.
Correct.
As well.
Yeah.
It's really, weird. Obviously, I mean, with the wrestling thing, I came on board when there was live audience, almost exactly a year ago now. Luckily enough, I came on board with WWE shooting ringside work and some studio stuff. And there was a smaller audience that was shooting NXT. And then, second COVID hit, and I was literally sitting next to Triple H when he was talking to Vince when they had just moved NXT into what was the Performance Center, which is their training facility here in Orlando. Mm-hmm. And they had to move it there because of their usual studio location at Full Sail had to be used for an awards ceremony day. And Triple H was literally like, why don't we just leave this arena up just in case something does get crazy with COVID-19? Because WWE has 3 shows a week, 3 live shows a week. 2 which are 2 hours and 1 which is 3 hours on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they travel like worldwide. I mean, they're literally every day in a different city with the talent and the crew. And they're like, we have to move everything here. We can at least film on their own private property in Florida and film inside of their warehouse. 2 days later, the entire WWE SmackDown moved to Orlando, Florida. It was filmed in the warehouse with all 3 shows for, I think it was 4 or 5 months that we're shooting inside there for live TV.
Outstanding.
Live TV for the most part of it, and it switched to pre-taping for a while at the peak of COVID. And now they were able to get Amway Center here in Orlando and build out this massive studio set inside the arena, which is filmed at 2 days a week for Raw and SmackDown, and then NXT is still filmed at Full Sail separately. So it's been a crazy ride for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? If you look at what we started talking about, your sort of your trajectory of photography from the flash to the commercial work to the newer lighting style, and now you're having to work entirely in this. You're working entirely in this world. Inside a dark studio, and I'll stick up a couple of images here of the type of thing that Chris is shooting. There we go, some body smacking ringside activity. Yeah, absolutely.
Dodging very large objects, very small objects.
It's fascinating, but also what I find fascinating about the wider shot is the ingenuity behind WWE to create a real audience.
And just entertainment, the light show, the pyro, the fire, like everything they do, because obviously it's an entertainment show. I mean, it's just live entertainment on USA Network, basically. So it's pretty wild to watch. I mean, even for me, just totally different world. Obviously I've been on plenty of live Red Bull shows, plenty of other sporting events, but this is just total opposite of anything I've ever done in my life. I'll never forget the phone conversation. Have you ever shot wrestling? No. Have you ever shot in the ring? No. It was basically no to every single thing. And they're like, we want you.
Yes.
And, here I am doing something I've never done. Like, I've never even covered live sports in my life. I guess live sports mean like Red Bull events or something being different, but like never have gone to a football game, baseball game, or soccer game. Have shot, side at all. Yeah. And now I'm sitting here ringside on a live TV show with, I think it's we got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think it's 9 cameras, 9 camera guys. And then there's also hard cams, and we have drones flying around and like jibs and everything. There's so much going into, like, I'm not just standing there shooting the photo and worried about the wrestlers coming out of the ring or any like ladders or anything flying around. You got to worry about what camera's filming, like where your camera guy you're working with is, where the guy is behind you that's roaming, where the jib above you is, and where the drone's flying, which one's filming, because they don't want you to show up on TV at all. Like, they do not want a kooky photo guy sitting like this anywhere on TV or even any of the other guys.
Absolutely
so
not.
It's a lot of moving parts you're moving around. Plus, all the camera guys are hardwired in, so it's like jump rope and hopscotch and dodgeball there all day.
Crazy.
For 3 straight hours.
Amazing. Well, look, Chris, well done. Well done for obviously getting the gig, and for thanks very much for your time talking us through all of your images and your career to date. Really, it's pretty interesting to see how you've kind of moved from style 1 to style 2 to style 3, and now trying to avoid people.
Yeah, total opposite of
wrestling. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. I'd just like to leave, we've talked about it, but parting question, one thing that you think will change forever as a result of COVID and the situation we're in?
No, besides the cliche stuff like travel and everything, I mean, I think the way business is done and the way we'll have to keep it on the photo industry, talking on the photo side of everything here, I mean, obviously crew stuff's going to be different, but I just think the way things are shot are going to be very tamed down for a very long time now. I mean, it's going to be at least a year. But like tournament change, there's a lot of different stuff, different ways business will be done, I think. There's going to be a lot less in-person stuff that we'll be doing, we'll say. And then everyone's going to be forced to get a little more creative as, the image that was up with WWE, like they went from live entertainment to, I mean, it's like a straight light show, entertainment show out there. It went from like entertain a live audience to, different ways to entertain people through these little monitors that we talk nowadays. I mean, there's going to be a lot of big change, besides the smaller things. I mean, the big one is definitely the way business is done in person nowadays will be a big one. No flying around like I usually do a quick flight to California to go meet people nowadays, It's
Absolutely.
Hey, you want to hop on a call?
Quite. I think you're going to need to change your bio, aren't you, really?
Yeah, it's going to be sits at home, shoots wrestling. That's what's going to be the last few months at least.
Indeed.
As lucky as that is to be able to drive 15 minutes to work, going from flying 200,000 miles a year to driving 15 minutes to work.
There you go. Chris, thanks ever so much for joining me. Thanks for being part of the conversation today. Take care, keep healthy, stay well, and keep on shooting WWE.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Take care, boss.
Great conversation again with Chris Garrison this week. Thanks very much for joining. Do tune in again. Got still some good, interesting guests coming up over the next few weeks. And if you're interested in any art for your walls, do flick on over to charliepinphoto.co.uk. For now, take care, have a good rest of the week, and stay healthy.